Sometimes you just have to will things to happen
Yeah.
and project what you want to be and what you're going to be. And then you just keep repeating it to yourself until you make it happen.
Welcome to the fifth episode of Leading with Relevance. This is a podcast series featuring some of our most prominent leaders. I like to say people busting through the status quo, impacting companies, impacting communities, impacting your employees, really making a difference in the world. My goal is to interview the highest personal and professional journeys of each leader and also understand a bit about their why. For the listeners, hopefully give you some practical insights into leadership and some things you can take away and tools you can use. I'm Tino Mantelis, Chief Strategy Officer, and loving the opportunity to talk to leadership, something I've enjoyed throughout my career, and it's just a great opportunity. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Richard Kopelman. I've known him for a long time. He's CEO and managing partner of Aprio. He has over 3 decades of experience in accounting and advisory, and also just from a standpoint of leadership. In 2024, this year, he was recognized by the Atlanta Business Chronicle as one of the most admired CEOs. So the company's been around a while, 72 years, but also it's one of the fastest growing accounting firms in the world. It's grown since 2016 from $70 million in revenue to $450 million. They used to have one office. Now they have 25, 1 to 25 offices over that time, and 350 people growing to 2,100. So amazing growth and excited to talk. So Richard, welcome to Leading with Relevance.
Tino, thank you for having me. It's an honor. It's great to spend some time with you and have enjoyed our time together over the years. So it's great to be here on the podcast.
Yeah, it's great to reconnect. Yeah,
And by the way, we actually also made the Inc. 5000 list this year.
Oh, very good.
Second year in a row, which is unusual for a business of our size.
Yeah, the larger you get, the harder it is. So that's an amazing accomplishment as well. And I've been watching you guys from afar from a long time and interface with you through tag and other things. So it's a great journey, and I'm sure our listeners will want to hear more. So I'd like to start by just talking about the formative years, because at least for me and for a lot of people I've been interviewing, those are important. So maybe talk about the early part of your life, what shaped you during those formative years, and 1 or 2 key figures perhaps that impacted your values and your trajectory.
Yeah, great question. So I would say I would say a couple of things. One is I went to, I think between 5th grade and 7th grade, I went to, if I remember correctly, 5 schools.
Oh, wow.
So change is something that really doesn't bother me because I, went through a lot of change in those years and experienced a lot of change. And then I started working when I was 13 years old. My mom was the top salesperson for a pre-need funeral company, publicly traded company, and I was her sales agent. I would set all of her appointments, or at least a chunk of her appointments. I would set. So I came up from school every day, and I made phone calls as a 13-year-old to set up appointments for prearranged funerals, which is a little unusual, I think, for a 13-year-old, and
Yeah.
have always been and always did a lot of sales, even as a even as a teenager. And then in college, and of course, my dad was an entrepreneur. My mom was a top salesperson for multiple companies. So parents, were very influential. And then I had a professor at University of South Florida that made a huge impact on me. My dad passed away when I was in college. And I would say some of the professors were unfortunately not very sympathetic. And Dr. Keith had lost his wife a few years earlier, and was really the only person that put their arms around me, essentially, not physically, of course,
Right.
but gave me a hug back at school to help me figure out like how to move through that semester and to continue in the accounting program. And my dad had actually suggested, because I didn't know what to do as a young man at university. And he said, accounting is the language of business, so you'll never go wrong by majoring in accounting.
Yeah. Well, that's a great segue into my next question because my statistics, my facts say that in 1992 you were a staff accountant. So talk about your career path. I know nobody's career path is a straight line, but kind of the most important leadership skills you learned along the way. But those are two questions actually, but kind
Yeah.
of the career path and then the things you learned along the way.
Yeah. So career path was, I think, fairly um, ordinary. Maybe the first 10 years, I think 8 or 9 years, as I was learning my craft and moving up through the organization. And then I had a partner I was working with that decided to go work for a client the year I made partner. And that landed me in the role of, at my request, of leading our manufacturing and distribution practice. And that sort of led me to have a lot of responsibility early in my career as an owner of a part owner, a partner in the business, and got me in front of some really cool audiences and in front of some great people. And I was definitely out punching my weight class early in my career, which was really kind of fun hanging out with people like you, speaking before the governor at the annual manufacturing luncheon for the state of Georgia. Uh, I started a nonprofit called Next Generation Manufacturing that puts on events all over the state of Georgia and has done so for 11 or 12 years now. And after taking that practice tenfold over 10 years, from $1 million startup, restarting that segment within our firm, the partners said, well, you know something about growth. Let's see what you can do with the firm. And at a young age, in my early 40s, got the opportunity to take over the helm and lead the organization. So it's been a lot of fun, lots of bruises along the way. Definitely made some poor choices or didn't read things, as well maybe as I could have. But, ultimately, as I say, if you bat better than 500, you're going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
And, we're batting more than 500 for sure.
for sure.
So, I learned, lots of lessons, lots of leadership lessons. I would say one of the most important things that I learned, and as you know, we just completed a transaction where we raised capital from a
Yes.
private equity fund, and we took 200 partners through our process. We had 100% of our partners voted to do the transaction, and
Wow.
100% of our partners that were offered contracts signed contracts. And that is unusual to be able to get that level of support with the number of partners that we have. And I learned early on through a number of things. I think probably you want to talk about the name change when we actually went from Aprio or from HAW to Aprio.
Right.
I learned a lot about bringing people along and a lot about transparency of information and transparency of process and over communicating. I
Yes.
Especially in a partnership, I don't think you can ever communicate too much
That's
to your
really good advice.
partners. And so balancing all of that, and I'm that way with our people. I did a town hall yesterday in our New York office, and I said, you can ask me anything you want. And they asked me some tough questions, but not all the tough questions they could have asked. So I actually asked myself those tough
That's
and
good.
answered those for them to make sure that they're getting, the fully what do they call it?
Unfiltered.
Unfiltered, just we call it speak straight
Yeah,
in
straight talk.
Apria.
I want to go back and visit something you said because I think it's really a good lesson for people that are early in their career. I would talk to my kids about reach. And to me, that means, the society typically thinks you take steps like you have to, I like to say, you have to jump through every flaming hoop of fire to get to the next hoop. But you mentioned that you stepped up and you said you wanted to take the manufacturing lead. Talk a little bit about that because you hit, well, your early 40s, you hit the leadership role, but probably that step with manufacturing, I'm guessing, was a big step to show your leadership. So how did that all come about?
My world got rocked. I was a brand new partner at the firm. I had just bought into the partnership, and I get this bomb basically that the partner that I've been working with, that we have been building this, building the momentum to drive this practice, decided to, leave the profession and go be in house with one of our clients. And, it, of course, it makes you think,
Yeah,
what are you doing, and are you in the right place? And then you start wondering, well, how am I going to move forward?
right.
And then you can move to the next stage, which is, okay, now how do I make this work? And
Yeah.
I didn't have a choice. This is what I
Okay.
knew. This is what I was focused on. And one of the things I love about our business is our people. And I often look for grit.
Mm,
And
yes.
you can replace and teach a lot of things, but grit, I don't think you can teach
Right.
most people. And I just didn't have a choice. I had just made partner. My wife and I had just had twins. They were a year old, I think a year or 2 years old at the time. And I needed to make it work. And so I walked into the managing partner's office at the time and I said, I don't know who's going to do this, but if you'll let me, I'll take it on.
That's cool.
And he said, yes. And then I went back to my office and I shut the door and I sat down and I was, what did I just do to myself?
How am I going to do that? Yeah. Yeah, that's funny, but maybe it's a little bit of accidental excellence there, but it seems like it got you really on a good trajectory because you got to have a leadership role in a very early age. Maybe you wouldn't have had that chance if your guy that was supervising you or the other partner hadn't left. But yeah, that's a good story. So I'm going
Oh,
to
I would have been the number two guy instead of all of a sudden being
number one.
catapulted into the number one slot
Yeah,
within this one area of the firm. And
right.
then to be able to go out and grow it and show people what we could do as a
Yeah,
team was pretty awesome.
yeah.
Great
I mean,
experience.
I think the lesson there is for everybody. If you have an opportunity to take a leadership role, even if you're, you know, maybe secretly thinking maybe you can't do it or you're not sure how you're going to do it, you just say you're going to do it and then you make it work. And oftentimes, that works. And if it doesn't, you fail fast and you move on to something else. Fortunately, that didn't happen with you. You took it from there.
One
So,
one of my can I add something?
yeah, please.
One of my partners says that sometimes you just have to will things to happen
Yeah.
and project what you want to be and what you're going to be, and and then you just keep repeating it to yourself until you make it happen.
That's a great, great
Don't
thing to
lose sight of
remember.
the Yeah, don't lose sight of the prize.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to switch gears a little bit again because you've had some amazing growth from 350 employees to 2,100, probably, last time I read this. So it's probably more than that, and 25 offices. And I know you kind of as a person and, the company values. In fact, my next question is going to be around the 31 fundamental behaviors that you have. But before that, it's like, how do you, build a culture? You're bringing on all these new companies that you've purchased. You might tell the audience how many in a particular year. I know it's a pretty high number that you've done in the 20s, 30s kind of thing. So, these are people coming in with probably all different mindsets and cultures. So how do you get them to meld into, one culture?
Yeah. 24 transactions
Yeah,
in the last 7 years, 19 since 2020, and we closed 9 transactions from January 1 through the end of the year last year.
yeah, it's
This year we've been on a
accelerating.
little, it's accelerating. This year we've been on a little bit of a pause. completing our transaction with Charles Bank, and now we're back on the trail. So you'll see some news soon out of Aprio. A lot of people talk about culture and they talk about having great culture and great people and all those things. And of course, we're in the people business, so we have to, of course, make that happen. And how we do it is, the Aprio brand, Aprio itself stands for head and heart. It comes from Cap and Aria, the Italian Song of the Hearts. So Cap, head, and the Song of the Hearts. And so we dropped off the sea and scrambled some letters and came up with Aprio. And so to bring that to life, we created 31 fundamentals of behavior. I have one up here as an example, be proactive. And we practice one of those every week. And so
Wow.
with the merged in firms, we bring that to them before we even close. We start practicing the fundamentals together. And they're talking about this week. Actually, this week's fundamental happens to be honor commitments. And I happen to like this one, so I keep this one up. But honor commitments is what everybody in the firm this week is talking about throughout the entire company. So
I
it
love
gives us
that.
a common language and a common way to speak and deal with one another.
I love that. Do you have like a czar or somebody that's leading that effort that's responsible for driving the fundamentals, or is it more you
It's
and
uh
leadership?
it's very much a group effort.
Okay.
We pass the baton every week. Someone in the firm kicks off the week with a fundamental email on Monday morning, and we pass that baton all over the country, all over the world, frankly,
Yeah.
and give people an opportunity to participate in building the culture.
You may know, I can't remember the name of this company, but it's like a zipper company. Uh,
YKK.
yeah. It's so, they did the fundamentals, and I've had, when I was in the leadership development company, I had a lot of conversations with them about how they did it. They have their charts and their graphs and all over the world going to these folks and having a different behavior every year. I mean, that's a great tool. I don't know how many companies do it, but it's certainly a way to drive what's important. And so you feel it's worked well then, obviously.
I think it is the number one contributor
Wow.
to being able to bring these firms together and keep a consistent overarching culture throughout the business. And something that everybody can point to and say, this is who we are. This is what we believe in.
Yeah.
This is why we're in business. And this is how we're going to serve our clients, how we're going to serve each other, and how we're going to take great care of our communities.
Yeah, that's really good. And like you said, you can't just say it once or twice. It has to be really built into the operational excellence program
See,
and
so think
over.
about the power of this week. Thousands of stories will get
Yeah.
told around Aprio about honor commitments.
Yeah. I love that. So, as you've grown, I'm sure there's challenges. You kind of alluded to 500 batting average, which is pretty gosh darn good. I know you guys are even doing better than that, but do you want to talk about maybe a challenge and how you overcame it, if one comes to mind, or a
Sure.
failure that you learned, and then you sort of pivoted and did something else? Because you and I probably believe that a lot of times you learn more from a failure than you do from a success.
I have learned a lot from failures and far from perfect, and it definitely builds a lot of character. The one that comes to mind is we had a team in one of our service units that the entire service unit left on one day, unfortunately. And it was due to some changes that we were looking to make that were in the best interest of the business and long term would have been in their best interest. They didn't see it that way. They didn't align to our fundamentals and our cultural values. And this was actually before we had put the fundamentals in place. So looking back on it, they didn't align to, what we in the future put in place. And what I learned was that our team is extremely resilient. And so we circled the wagons, we buckled down, we invested the time, effort, energy in building the business unit back up. And today, as a result of those efforts and the grit the willingness to win, we we've rebuilt that business to 10x what it was
Yeah. Wow.
just 5.5, 6 years ago. And that business is poised to grow 7x over the next 5 years.
Wow.
So we took lemons and made it into lemonade for sure.
Yeah. That's great. So I know you're a planner and you've talked about that already. And I know you sometimes have to pivot on the plan, but one of the things, I'll just be specific because you mentioned it, getting 200 partners, I think you said, to all agree on the same thing. I don't know if I've ever had that level of success. And I wish I learned that earlier on when I had in one of my jobs, because it was like, this makes sense. This is what we should do, and then you try to do it and it's like California or New York, or I won't mention the job, but it was like, oh, our board voted no to do that. So how do you bring everybody along to get 100% support for that?
A lot of time, a lot of transparency, keeping people informed,
Yeah.
uh, providing the details as to why I thought it was an important move, why our board thought it was an important change that we needed to make in the business. Ultimately, the foundation of a business is obviously like anything in a house or a building, it's the most critical thing, right? If you have a weak foundation, then you're not going to be able to execute your plan. And we believe in generating growth for purposes of creating opportunity for our people in the business, and that will help retain and develop the best people in the profession. It's one of our beliefs of how we do that. And so in order to do that, we felt like this was the best way to continue to grow the business and provide those opportunities to our people and provide the best service to our clients over time. And we explained that. I explained that. We got the data and information necessary to show our partner group why, and continue to be transparent, answer any and all questions, and provide the information, all of the information at the right time in the right way.
Yeah. It sounds like most companies, I mean, you have some kind of hierarchy. How hard is it to talk to Richard Kopelman if you're a partner and say, hey, I want to, pick up the phone. I'm not sure I believe in what we're doing. That's, a lot of people that report to someone or have trouble doing that because they're not sure what the repercussions will be or whatever.
I've been lucky and continue to be lucky that I have a great board around me, great leaders within the business that have many of them that have merged in. I mean, of our board, prior to closing, half of our board was made up of partners that had merged into the firm in the last 4 years that were
Okay.
elected by the broader group. So availability of leadership and making sure all the leadership is on the same page has been absolutely critical and paramount to everything we've done. And as far as getting a hold of me, I always tell people number one is text, number two is Teams, number three is email. And if for some reason that failed, then I've got an amazing assistant, Rita, who
Yeah,
and
she's great.
Rita is always available to make sure that anybody that needs help is getting the assistance and help they need. And if someone texts me or call me, they're going to get a call back within a few hours.
That's great. So you've done a lot of M&A, and I guess in general, I like to, from your strategy, whatever you can share, obviously, your some of it's probably under the covers there, but buy, build strategy. I mean, how do you guys look at what a good investment is, and uh, you know, at least some of your growth has been through the acquisition side, but talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, we focus on a variety of, I would call them, the five-legged stool of how we've been growing the business. So we have a variety of mechanisms that we've been using to drive both the organic and the inorganic growth. We have, as you mentioned earlier, we were one office in Atlanta 7 years
Yeah.
ago. Today we're 25.
Wow.
We're continuing to build out a national footprint serving emerging growth companies. That is where our main focus is, especially on the traditional service side of the house. And M&A has certainly been a strong strategy of finding like-minded cultural fits that align with either the types of industries and segments that we serve, or finding new national segments, such as the DC merger we did last year that added construction and government contracting to the mix of segments that we're now serving across the country, while filling in geography to ensure that we are serving clients in markets like Atlanta, Boston, New York, the DMV, District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia, Miami, Northern California. So very similar, I'll call, tier one cities across the
Yeah.
country.
Makes sense. So one of your podcasts I listened to, they called you a matchmaker, but they never asked you the question of why do they call you a matchmaker? So, people call you that, connecting investors, PE with the right projects. So talk a little bit about how you see yourself as a matchmaker.
Yeah, I believe one of the things that we can all do as leaders is help, great people connect with great people, whatever that might be. That might be, in fact, I was just sitting in a meeting a little while ago and something came up and they said something that triggered someone in particular. And I texted that person and said, where are you? Have you started your new gig yet?
Yeah.
And once you do, I think there's someone that you need to meet. And look, it might turn into something, it might turn into nothing, it
Yeah.
might turn into nothing, and then something 10 years later, you never know. But I believe as leaders, one of the greatest thing we can do for people is connect people together that will improve their personal or professional lives or careers, or help them take their business to the next level, whatever it is. And by helping people and giving to others, it will come back tenfold. And
Yeah.
I never really think about what's going to happen as a result, but
Right.
I think we should all pay it forward
Yeah. Love that.
and drive those meaningful relationship introductions and help relationships evolve.
Yeah. I love that. So, your staff knew I was going to ask this question. They need a little bit of an explanation, but Jim Collins wrote a book, Great by Choice. It's relatively new. I don't know if you picked it up. Yeah, it's a good book.
I have not.
Yeah, it's a good book. And he talks about first fire bullets and then cannonballs. So, what he talks about there basically is, make a lot of small bets and then go big. So what's your strategy with that in terms of your investments? And
Yeah, I often talk about incubating things.
yeah,
So let's try five or six things,
yeah,
and let's test them out in either small teams, if it's technology, let's say, or if it's a new service that we're going to bring to market, let's test it. Or if we're going to make a change in a process within the business, let's incubate that in a small team. And then once we see it working, then and I think this is something special about actually Aprio. Once we see it and it's working and we make the commitment, we'll make the change actually faster than most people think we can make the change.
yeah,
And that's been part of the genetic makeup since I've been with the firm. We once went through a change where we were realigning all of the clients to the industry experts within the firm, and we had to move 50% of the clients. And we had a 3-year plan, and all of our consultants told us it would take 3 years. It was done in 12 months.
wow,
And that was back in the 90s.
yeah,
That's just part of who we are.
yeah. That's great. So you have a recent deal I think you can talk about with Charles Bank, because you mentioned it, the Capital PE out of Boston. And I think you've said, I'll quote you, I think, will help to modernize and better meet the client's needs. So talk what you can about that and why you did it, and you got 100% support from the partners, so that's great.
Many professions, many industries are going through major sea changes, and the accounting profession is not immune. We are, there are lots of technology innovations and new services that are coming to market on a regular basis. And we believe that, with a partner in tow, it'll make us better intellectually. It'll make us better from a speed standpoint, and it'll give us the needed capital to accelerate our 2030 strategy and beyond. So we made a conscious choice without a need, without being forced into doing anything. We
Right.
made a conscious decision to investigate our options, and ultimately, I think picked an amazing partner in Charles Bank. And we are, already 14 days in, already speeding things up and planning for some really amazing opportunity and amazing future together.
So, being that Relevance is a leader in custom software development and it's all about engineers and technology, there's things like AI out there and machine learning, blah, 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 blah. Have you gotten far enough to say, what kind of, do you have a big investment or something you really need to do on the technology side to stay current, stay ahead of the curve?
So technology for sure across every business is critical today in our profession as well. We have already built out teams in the U.S. and abroad that are working internally on automation projects. We're test piloting a number of AI software and tools and technologies inside of the firm. We view this as an opportunity to free up our people so that they can be relevant with our clients, and they can be out advising and coaching and working with our clients more often, and automate some of those other tasks that
Yeah.
will allow them to spend more time with clients. Every time, we do a survey with our clients, the number one thing they tell us is they want us to spend more time with them.
Okay. Yeah. And automation will help with that. Um,
Automation will free up capacity.
yeah. Yeah. Um, so your industry is changing too. You mentioned it. Is there a lot of roll up, like a lot of industries where, the smaller, I don't want to say mom and pop, that's probably not the right word, but the smaller organizations might be going away, or is there a place for them? How do you look at that?
Yeah, we are of the opinion, our chief investment officer, Simeon Wallace, who is a great thinker for, along with us about the future of not just our business and our profession, also for our clients as well. And we believe that big will continue to get bigger
Okay.
and small will remain relevant and maybe even get smaller. A middle ground is where we see the problems. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to grow the business when we started doing so in 2017, especially expanding outside of Atlanta, becoming more national. We wanted to grow the business to escape that risk, and that's our view on the world. That it's gonna the technology investments, the scale that's going to be required to provide the kind of environment for the modern client and to create the modern CPA and business advisory firm is going to take scale.
Makes sense. So I think a lot of, well, let me say it this way, that, we've both been in leadership positions for a long time, and people say, well, the CEO role, president role can be a lonely place. And you joined a group. I didn't pick up where it was. I was in YPO for a number of years. And just talk to the listeners about how you feel it's important to have some kind of a network. I'm assuming you do because I know you mentioned it, a network group that you can kind of talk to confidentially, et cetera, et cetera.
So I'm a member of Vistage, if that's okay to say on the
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I've been a member of Vistage for 15 years, actually, as of last week. I hit my 15-year anniversary
Congrats.
as a member of Vistage. And we often, or my chair often says, the chairman of our Vistage group often says that Vistage is where you go to get your answers questioned, not your questions answered.
I love that.
And for me, it is a day a month where I'm sequestered, if you would, in a room where we spend as a group the day working on each other's businesses
Yeah.
and not in the business. And I do think it's important that I think it's absolutely critical that people take the time to separate, a day or two a month and focus on getting things cleaned up and
Yeah.
catching up on things that have been dragging that just haven't gotten done because we're all busy and there's plenty to do in this world. And then to be part of a peer group where you can sit with people that are outside of your profession or outside of your industry. And I also meet with industry people on a regular
Yeah.
basis. But to be outside and to have people ask you questions because they don't know, they're not burdened by the the thoughts and group think within a profession or industry. I think having that diversity is really critical. It's actually one of our fundamentals is value differences.
Yeah.
And I think it's just absolutely critical that you have that group and that peer group to question what it is you're doing and you're thinking. And
Yeah.
and many ideas that we've implemented, not all of them are by any stretch, but some of the ideas that we've implemented at the firm have absolutely come out of my peer group,
Yeah. And
from
there's a
my
lot of,
peers.
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Richard.
No, that's it.
Yeah, I would just add there's a lot of commonalities that you wouldn't think. So, yeah, everybody has staffing kinds of conversations, finance conversations, growth conversations. Uh,
HR, legal, risk
yeah.
management,
Yeah.
production. I mean,
Yeah.
it's 99% the same and 1% nuanced.
Yeah. Yeah. So listen in, everybody. See if you can join a group if you're not. And a lot of times it's best to do both. As Richard said, have a group of people that are in similar ways that you can trust, but also have a group that comes from very different disciplines. You're going to learn probably a lot more oftentimes that way. So you built your company in Atlanta, and we helped start Venture Atlanta, and Technology Association of Georgia was a little bit of a baby when I got to run it for 12 years. Talk about why Atlanta.
Well, first of all, you did an awesome job
Thank you.
leading TAG. So thank you for making a huge impact on the
Thank
city
you.
of
Thank you.
Atlanta and the technology community in our city.
Thank you.
Why Atlanta for me or why Atlanta for Aprio?
Uh, Well, why Atlanta for Aprio, but you can say why Atlanta for you too. Like, his companies are, hopefully people are listening from now. You have a lot of offices all over now, but as companies are listening, why is Atlanta a great place to have, leadership and your business foundational here?
The easy answer is our founders started it in Atlanta in 1952
Okay.
and grew it from there. And Atlanta continues to be the headquarters of the business today. I think Atlanta's got a really fabulous business community in that, the since the Olympics, especially the international flair and the types and variety of industries and the public number of public companies that are headquartered in Atlanta, I think make it an ideal environment for a business to operate, to scale, and to find amazing talent and
No.
leadership throughout the city. For us, the airport makes a huge difference today. Now that we
Okay.
have offices all over the country, we can get to so much of the U.S., as you know, in a pretty short period of time. And Delta, hometown airline does a
Yeah.
great job of making sure we get there on time. And the weather, as you know, is pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
A
little
little
hot in
hot,
the summertime,
little
but
hot today, but yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, I'd rather take that than growing up in upstate New York where I did, where it's snow and
Oh,
gray.
brutal. The other thing that I think, Tino, is cool is that so many people in Atlanta, like you and I, are not from Atlanta.
Right.
So I think it's a really welcoming community.
Yes.
And for me, I found it really easy to get, even as a young kid out of college, I found it really easy to get embedded in the business community,
Yeah.
even above my weight class
Yeah.
early on.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And, and we ran TAG, there was about 70 organizations like us throughout North America. And when I started sitting with those folks a couple times a year, there's fellow CEOs, it became very evident that most cities and communities don't have the kind of open network that we do here, where you can go to
100%.
ATP or TAG or, all the other places that people can go to get involved. So, yeah, another good reason to think about Atlanta. If you're not here, come here. So, I had the pleasure of having a friend that you and I both know, David Cummings, on one of the early podcasts. And he was saying that he felt that, as he's thinking about entrepreneurship and building companies and identifying people that are good prospects for leadership or companies that are good to invest in, he talked about markets are more important than ideas and also more important than the people running it. I know all three are needed, but I just wondered what you thought about, there's a lot of people coming out of Georgia Tech and other places that have the product idea, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I see lots of people and I've met lots of people and that have great ideas and great either products or services and fail to execute. I think, that's
Yeah.
you just look at the
Table
statistics.
stakes.
Yeah, you can see the number of businesses that fail,
Yeah.
around the world, and certainly in the US is no different. For me, and from my experience at Aprio, I turn to culture. And I know it's an overused phrase of, culture will eat strategy for
Yeah.
lunch. But for us, I think it's our inability or our unwillingness to lose and the grit that we have at the firm, the entrepreneurial nature of the business, maybe because of our founders and our desire to continue to drive the next generation that has continued to propel the business.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I have a few more questions, so we're getting down near the end, but I think these are all important, so I'm going to try to go quickly on these. So, some people are all in on work, not many, but you seem to have balanced, work, family, and community. You're pretty involved with the community, very involved with the community. So, just talk about the importance of that balance.
So one of our fundamentals is make a difference.
Okay.
So and it's part of the fabric of the firm of Aprio. Our founders were all very involved in the community. And today our partners are very involved in communities all over the country. And we have a full-time person that her role and responsibility is the community and to make sure that our people who have a desire to serve on boards get educated on how to do that and then
That's
get them
great.
placed on boards. We have the Aprio Foundation, which has given away more than $2.5 million
Wow.
over the last 10 years. And it is, it's part of our objectives. I always say make sure we're taking care of ourselves, make sure we're making sure we're taking care of our clients and making sure that we're taking care of our communities because they've done so much for us. It is our responsibility to give back.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And, encouraging that, I'm sure you have a lot of people involved with different, seen them around town. So different organizations and all. So that's great. Outside of community, I guess your broader community is your own life experiences. I was reading that you've done safaris, visited the ancient ruins in Israel, deep sea fishing, skiing. Does this make you stronger leader, or just it's a time to chill? You've done a lot.
I think that if you pay attention when you're traveling around the world, especially in different cultures and communities and your different experiences, that you bring that. I think you should. and hopefully people do bring that back to, their own little world and their companies, in terms of, how you think about business, and also, do you think about things locally, regionally, or globally?
Yeah.
And the world, as you know, is, you go to
Smaller and
different
smaller.
places. I mean, it's very different in the United States depending on the community you're in, and I
True.
experience that every day with our own business. And then when you go around the world, it's, vastly different. I think it has shaped my thoughts
Yeah.
and my approach to business somewhat.
Yeah. Do you try to do something every year? Something special?
I do, and
That's
and
good.
actually we've now made, my wife and I have now made a commitment to do a pretty substantially long vacation in the summertime, of multiple, 3 weeks
Oh,
generally
wow.
now.
You probably
Because
never done that before, I'm guessing.
I started doing that about 2 years ago, and
Okay.
it really gives me an opportunity to, unplug.
Yeah.
We're closed as a business on July 4th, the week of July 4th.
Okay.
So it gives me an opportunity uh, to uh, to really unplug and really get immersed in what I'm doing and where we are. So I look forward to continuing to do that. I have to work on probably a little bit while I'm away over
I'm
over that
sure.
long of a period of time.
So last question. I always like to end with this, although you and I can go back, ask other questions if there's something I missed. But if you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice regarding what we're calling relevant leadership, what would it be?
It's advice for relevant leadership. Now you're asking a hard question because you only want me to give one piece of advice on.
Yeah, what would you tell?
I mean, if you want to be really basic, if I want to be very basic on your question and directly answer it and use the verbiage, I would say make sure you're relevant.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think make sure you're relevant, make sure your business is relevant,
yeah,
not just today, but that you're laying the foundation and making the moves today that are going to make you relevant 5 years from now. If we didn't start growing, as an example, if we didn't start growing 7 years ago, our business would be becoming more irrelevant every single day
yeah.
instead of more relevant every day.
And with that, I think you're too saying, staying ahead of the curve. So your business probably looks a lot different, even in terms of your offerings from 7 years ago till today, right?
Oh, we have, twice as many services and
Yeah,
service capability. Our um, our training and development of our people and how we focus on that is completely, how we're thinking about that is totally different. I mean, literally everything from technology to marketing to HR
yeah,
to our systems
yeah,
are completely different than they were 7 years ago.
yeah. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you and appreciate you doing this. Thanks. Have
And I
fun in New
appreciate the
York.
time today.
All right. Take care.